I'll have what she's having.
Okay, so I'll have what she's having. I think for me that's a really neat phrase that captures this thing called social learning, and we're going to hear a lot more about social learning in the next few years. I think it's one of those ideas whose time has come. We are social creatures. We live in a world of other people. From the moment we're born to the day we die, we're with other people. And with lazy minds, driven by emotions rather than rationality, the easy thing to do in many situations is just do what the other guys do. And that simple mechanism, I think, is at the heart of many of the complex phenomena that we do. We observe as observers of human behaviour. Described as of human behaviour. Importantly, complexity is the result of interacting agents. This mechanism is the means which shapes a lot of the complex phenomena we see in mass behaviour, or even in large group behaviour, as we're hearing about in the amusement park. I say from the moment we're born, the earliest recorded example of this is 42 minutes old. This is Andy Meltzoff, who did some great experiments in the 70s. It's a fantastic haircut there. And he took infants away from their mothers as early as he could, as early as the authorities would let him. I'm not sure he'd be allowed to do it anymore. And he made faces at them. And his research assistants recorded how accurate the responses were from infants. And he discovered a number of things. Humans do it earlier, they do it better, and they do it longer, long after there's any discovery of any lack of reward. Chimps, for example, and gorillas, our closest relatives, do it to start with and then give up because there's no food, there's no comfort, there's no nothing. The human infants carry on doing it again and again and again. And of course, if you've got kids, or you spend any time with kids, you know this is just what they do. The idea of monkey see, monkey do is wrong. It's humans see human. And they pick up some good stuff, and as we all know, they pick up the stuff you don't want them to pick up from you. Precisely the stuff you don't want them to pick up from you. The words, the gestures, and some of the attitudes that really won't help them later in life. This is so important that some social scientists are now suggesting that we rename our species from Homo sapiens, the wise one, the thinking one, to Homo minicus, the one who copies. And it doesn't just stop at puberty, miraculously. That would be great. If we got to puberty and we said, okay, now I'm not going to copy anymore. The people you hang out with, your mother was right. Don't hang out with those guys who ride fast motorbikes and wear leather jackets and smoke cigarettes and stay out late, because you'll pick up stuff. We all pick up stuff from people around us. The names we give our children spread through populations as if they were a fashion, copying each other. One of my co-authors recently had his first child, and his initial breakthrough as an academic researcher was on the study of how names spread through populations. And he and his wife decided to have themselves a name for their firstborn child that was going to be different from anyone else's, that was going to be unusual, that no one else would give their name in the generation. And they eventually landed, after 8.5 months, on the name Archie, which is not completely original. It's not like Zog or something that's very obscure, but you wouldn't imagine that would be quite common. Until Emma went off to the first mother and baby group and discovered there were 2 other Archies in the group. They were convinced they were acting independently. They picked up on somehow on what other people were doing. All kinds of things are the basis of people copying the people around them, responding to them using this simple mechanic of I'll have what she's having. And obesity is one of the most important ones. I don't know if you read a recent book by Nick Christakis and James Fowler of Johns Hopkins. Great reanalysis of the Framingham, Massachusetts longitudinal health study, which showed that you're 63% more likely to become obese if someone in your immediate circle does. It's not just a case of I was told of my perfect physique is not just the result of a slow metabolism and a fast pie hand. It's the people that you live with, the lifestyle you share, the meal times you share, or the lack of meal times and so on, that shape your physical outcome. So this stuff is really important, and it's not just, as I say, because of social media. It's long been the case, but we haven't been able to observe it, although social media is now making it much clearer. My big challenge as a practical person is how do we spot whether this is going on? How do we see whether or not this is what the market is driven by? How do we understand that stuff? And we can't do expensive market research stuff, nor can we do, this is Christakis and Fowler's reanalysis of the framing of Massachusetts stuff. The yellow dots here, by the way, are obese people. And you'll see over 32 years they get more greater in number, and they move to the centre of the network, and they get bigger too. We can't do this kind of expensive stuff on a run-of-the-mill marketing project. We don't have those kind of resources. So what could we do, was my question. What could we do that would help us understand whether or not social influence or independent choice were dominating behaviour in our markets, to set appropriate strategies for behaviour change? And the first port of call I thought was really, really interesting, and that's where these two guys, and particularly Professor Alex Bentley, come in. Diffusion science has patterns. It's well known for registering, for annotating patterns that tell us what's going on underneath, and we'll all recognise the pattern on the right. This is essentially an adoption curve. Everett Rogers and co. looked at this stuff, and it's common in many marketing situations where over time, a small number of people do something different from other people, the early adopters, and then other people after them do what other people around them are doing, and more until it reaches a peak, and then it falls away, and people move on to something else. On the left is a very different pattern, which we do see also in some consumer markets, but this is like a fad, a short-term burst of interest and a fall away. And these patterns we see in all kinds of situations. This is a news story, and this is the Twitter feed of a news story from last summer. Is anyone here from Ohio or that part of the world? You'll probably know this church of Touchdown Jesus, it's called, right? Anyone heard the story? So this church got a huge statue, about 100 foot high, and what you see at the top there is the burnt out remains of that statue. It was struck by lightning June 15th. So this is the Twitter feed then of what happened there. And on the left, you have this huge spike, again, as we saw on the previous slide, and then a rounder one, denoting social diffusion. Sometimes you see these two spikes together for the same thing diffusing through a population. But sometimes you see a dominant form, and then the exception stands out. So this is names. This is 50 years, long, nice time series of names. But it could be anything. And over on this side, most names follow this kind of pattern. They go up in popularity and they come down. Nice and smooth and symmetrical. And to be a popular name in the US, by the way, you don't have to have many children being given that name. So 0.2% of the population goes up and comes down, nice and smooth. But on this side, you see that asymmetrical, that's a spike. This is a different name. That happens to be a name called Christy. Over this side, the name is Trisha, which peaks, starts to take off just before 1970, and then 71, 72. That's a signal that something different has happened. It's not people copying each other. It's some external event that's caused that pattern to occur. Can anyone suggest what that might be? Trish Nixon, exactly. So that's one of the examples of a celebrity effect on naming. But you can see that pattern standing out against the background of everything which looks more like Christie if you do these plots. So that's really useful, right? You can look at all kinds of data sets to do the same kind of thing.